I'm the legal manager at JC Corporate in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Before we begin, I would like to take a brief moment to briefly introduce JC Corporate. JC Corporate is the leading provider of cross-border corporate advisory work. We help entrepreneurs to set up the right vehicles to achieve their business goals. JC Corporate also have a global network of business partners in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, China, US, UK, and Dubai. Currently, there are two offices. One is located in Hong Kong, and it has been established since 2014. And the other offices that is located in the heart of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and it has been established since January 2020. So in the view of the growing interest in the real estate market and the property investment recently, this is the reason why we've organized this webinar to give you a deeper insight into the property investment in Malaysia. So today, we are honored and delighted to have leading figures in the real estate field from Malaysia as our guest speakers. So today, our first guest speaker of the day would be Mr. Nick Siu, the director of Hartamas Real Estate Hong Kong. And next, we have Miss Sarah Kambali, partner of MahWengKwai and Associates. And she is specialized in real estate practice. And following by Mr. Chai Chuan Long, partner of Julius, Leonie Chai, under the Real Estate and Property Practice Group. Last but not least, we have Janice Chiu, the Legal Director of JC Corporate, as our panel moderator today. During presentation, feel free to raise any questions by typing them into the Q&A box below. We will address the questions during the panel discussion or revert in writing for any unanswered questions relevant to the topic of discussion today. So now, without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Nick Siu. Nick, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Hao Min, for your kind introduction. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see? Hi, good afternoon,
Yes.
everyone. My name is Nick Siu. I'm a Malaysian based in Hong Kong. So a quick introduction about our company profile. We are a Malaysian company, started since 1996. We have offices in Shanghai and Taipei. And last year, July, we started our Hong Kong branch. So we are a one-stop shop for real estate services, such as project marketing, corporate services, asset management, and valuation, and also training and academy. So for those who have not been to Malaysia, a quick share about Malaysia. So Malaysia is located in Southeast Asia. We have about 32 million population. And the majority of the population derive from three main ethnic groups. So we have a Malay, Chinese, Indian, and other locals. So our main export is electrical and electronics, oil and gas, and palm oil. And we rank third largest in Asia in terms of our country's GDP. So this is the latest economic updates from World Bank. As you can see, this year, many countries has deteriorated in their GDP growth, and we expect the economy will recover by Q2 next year. So if you can look into the graph, the World Bank is expecting Malaysia to recover at 6.9% GDP growth by next year. So many people was wondering why people would, move to Malaysia, reside in Malaysia, and even invest in Malaysia, whether from a business standpoint or your own stay standpoint. Is we are a blessed country protected from natural disaster. So this map is actually showing you the last 50 years. The green dots are showcasing the historical earthquakes. Yeah, but if you look into Malaysia, this is West Malaysia and this is East Malaysia. We have not experienced any major natural disaster. So this is a sharing of Malaysia property price since 1990s until 2018 recently. We saw Malaysia property price has gradually increased between 4 to 5% year on year. So this is the Malaysia residential prices forecast derived by NAPIC, a Malaysia government agency that actually tracks land transaction. So according to NAPIC, we saw that this year and forecasting next year, the property prices is going to be slow. The main reason why is, firstly, is due to the COVID-19, and secondly is due to the lockdown between this year March to June, and hence a lot of sales activities has halted. And surprisingly, Q3 and Q4 onwards this year, we saw the sales activities has improved gradually due to two main factors. One is the initiative from the government. They extended some of the initiative like HOC campaign to next year, June 2021. So HOC stands for House Ownership Campaign. Yeah. And the second factor is a lot of developers are trying to help the buyer to get on board onto their first investment property or property for their own stay. So they have came out a lot of interesting package to help buyers to get on board. So we foresee next year the market will be soft, but we will gradually see the improvement by 2022. So if you're from Hong Kong, you can see this is the currency chart from early this year until September. And as you can see, the currency actually plummeted since March. The main reason of this sudden drop is because of the oil prices. Early this year, there's one moment that the oil prices actually trading at below zero. Yeah. So since then, our currencies has improved and strengthened, and until today, we have actually increased 2 to 3% over the last 3 months. So this is a 10-year graph. We are still at all-time low as compared to 10 years ago at 2.5 level. And right now we are at around 1.9. So there is another 20% upside to actually look into Malaysia markets. So I'd like to share with you a few areas when it comes to commercial investment and where can you set up your office and also your manufacturer factory. So KL, we have about 2 million population. Uh, the unemployment rate is relatively low. And those who have not been to KL, this is our iconic building, the Petronas Twin Towers. So many may not aware that actually many multinational companies has entered Malaysia. So for example, we have companies from the US, such as Honeywell. We have company from Japan, Hitachi, and etc. So all this company has moved into Malaysia since 10, 15, 20 years or more ago. So one of the main reasons that attract them into Malaysia is first is the multilingual talents in Malaysia. So most of the Malaysian, we can speak three main languages, Malay, English, and Chinese. And secondly is because of the well-equipped infrastructure. And thirdly is because of the tax-friendly environment in Malaysia. So most of the investment covered are supply chain, uh, center of excellence, global business services. So this this map I actually obtained it from InvestKL. As you can see, most of the MNC from around the world has presence in Malaysia. And when it comes to property investment, this is a good so-called guideline for you to refer. So let's say if you want to invest somewhere near the city center, like KLCC, so you can expect your potential tenants will be coming from directors or employees from these companies. So next I will talk about Selangor. So Selangor is a few times much larger than KL. We have a total population of 6.5 million. And the unemployment rate is also relatively low at 2.8%. So these are the 5 core clusters that cover under Selangor. First one will be the transport and equipment. So you have companies, automotive background like Toyota, F&B beverage, electrical and electronics, machinery and equipment, and life sciences. So these are the industrial parks that are actually owned by the local council. So next is about Penang. So Penang is an island on its own. We used to have a direct flight from Hong Kong to Penang. It will only take you about 3 hours to travel to Penang. So we have a total population of 1.8 million. And there are similarities between Penang and Hong Kong. If you look at the map here, Penang Island is like Hong Kong Island, and Seberang Perai is like Kowloon in Hong Kong. So many Hong Kongers, when they travel to Penang, they will feel like going back to the 80s in Hong Kong. So these are the main sectors and well-known in Penang. Mainly are the semiconductors and E&E industry. So we have companies such as Intel, AMD, Broadcom, the list goes on. These companies has entered Malaysia and set up their manufacturing plants since the 90s. And lately, we saw more and more European companies such as Osram that supply and produce a light bulb from Germany. We have also a healthcare company from the Europe. So giving you an idea, Penang has the world-class facilities to accommodate these multinational companies. So these are the industrial park listed by the local council. So we have also Penang Science Park and Pride Free Industrial Zone. So one thing to note that when you decide to set up your manufacturing plant or your offices in Malaysia, think of which sector you are in first. And secondly, consider that you like to move to a place that is near to your supply chain so that it will complement to your businesses. So next, I will share about Iskandar Johor. So Johor is located next to Singapore. It's just 30 minutes drive by the causeway. So we have about 2 million population, twice the size of Hong Kong. And many people actually mirror Johor, Singapore relationship like Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And we saw that many up and coming development happening in Johor. For example, we have this RTS railway that is going to complete in 2024, and it will actually narrow down the travel time from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. It's a train ride from Johor to Singapore. So these are the opportunities that you can tap into when it comes to Johor. Mainly, I would like to highlight is the tourism and healthcare, and also oil and gas industry, because Johor has a port that is next to Singapore. So a lot of oil and gas companies been attracted and set up their plants in Johor. So these are the industrial park listing by the local council. So I'd like to share an industrial case study. So this is one of our client from China. So normally we will obtain these requirements from our clients so that before we move on to source for some potential properties for them. So these are the information that we require to obtain upfront in order for us to provide advice to them. So our client is actually from automobile industry, one of the in the supply chain. So we actually proposed them Glen Mary, which is well known for automobile. So just give you an idea of the approximately asking rental for this build-up size of 14,300 square feet. So actually Malaysia are still relatively affordable when it comes to setting up your business. So this is a guideline for those who like to set up an office in Malaysia. So you can actually take this as a guideline for the renovation costs and also space planning costs. So Our company in Malaysia, we cover most of the office tower in KL and also Selangor. So from the left, you can see the most expensive asking rental is 13.5 ringgit. So it's around 26 Hong Kong dollar. So 26 Hong Kong dollar is nowhere near that you can rent in central Hong Kong. In central Hong Kong, you need to pay at least 70 Hong Kong dollar per square feet. And now you only need to pay 26 Hong Kong dollar right at the heart of Kuala Lumpur next to the Petronas Twin Towers. And this is, I'm talking about the most expensive office tower in entire Malaysia. So that's all I would like to share about today. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Next, we'd like to invite Sarah Kambali from MahWengKwai and Associates to take us through the investor tips for foreigners. Sarah, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Kambali. I am from MahWengKwai and Associate. Let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. All right, everybody can see my screen, yeah? All right, good. I can see thumbs up. Before we start, let me just introduce a little bit about MahWengKwai and Associate. We are a small, we're a medium-sized law firm who does a lot of medium enterprises, family business, and individual matters, established by Datuk MahWengKwai himself, who is now a consultant in the firm. We have about 22 lawyers, 5 partners or 6 partners right now. We just included 2 more, 2 more last year, this year. Even though there's COVID, we still increase our staff. Full service law firm. We have corporate dispute resolution, employment, individuals and families. And in these practice groups, we also have Asian China desk, construction matters, foreign direct investments, real estate, sports, and esports. So we're quite all-rounded, and we have enough teams to assist in all your needs. For conveyancing, I head the conveyancing team and real estate. Usually we deal with acquisitions and disposals, property developments and joint ventures, commercial listings, build-to-suit property transactions, perfection of transfer and charge, financing of loans, and tenancy and leases. A little bit of my background, and I think this was already given to everybody. So my topic today is how to help foreigners to buy properties in Malaysia, or rather the tips for you to look out for. Malaysian property market, as our first speaker has mentioned, is very attractive actually with all its perks. However, as a foreigner, you should be able to see what is the things that you need to look out for. And this relatively is under our National Land Code, 1965, which is now revised to 2020. It's revised, slightly amended to suit the current technologies. We are moving towards non-paper, all internet and digitalized titles. We are, but it's slow, it's coming there, but we are doing that. And also we need to look into the guidelines of acquisition of properties, the EPU guidelines. EPU is Economic Planning Unit in Malaysia. Today we'll be focusing a little bit more on Selangor, because that's where I am from, Selangor. Kuala Lumpur, our neighboring state, and also Johor. But I will not forget Penang as well, as our first speaker has mentioned about Penang as well. Definition of a foreigner, you can see in section 433A, as I mentioned, there's a revised version of National Land Code, but the sections remain the same. The 433A and the Companies Act 2016, whereby the definition of foreigner is an individual which are not a citizen of Malaysia. This means that this person is not either a PR nor is a person who is under MM2H program. MM2H is Malaysia My Second Home program. It's for companies, it's those that are incorporated outside of company. Those are foreign companies. And those companies that are incorporated inside the Malaysia under the SSM, Securities Commission, CCM, I'm sorry, SSM for Bahasa, CCM, 50% of the voting shares are held by non-Malaysian, non-citizens, or 50% or more voting shares held by a company that is non-Malaysian. Those are companies which are foreign based. Why is this important? Because if you are in these categories, in this definition, you would need to request for certain confirmation or certain authority consent. So I will go to it at the end of my slides, but right now let's go on to the top points. I will be sharing with you the minimum purchase price that a foreigner has to get in order, the threshold, in order to actually purchase a property in Malaysia. For example, in Kuala Lumpur itself, before we get to the slide, our minimum purchase price for foreigners is at a threshold of 1 million ringgit and above. 1 million ringgit and above, all right? But if it were to fall anything below that amount, then a foreigner cannot purchase the property. Properties for off-limit are the properties that foreigners cannot purchase in Malaysia. Real property gain tax, how does it apply to foreigners? This is the third point that I would like to share with you. And as I said just now, a foreigner consent. How do you do it? Basically the requirement and what is the mechanism to it. And last but not least, Economic Planning Unit, EPU. How is it relevant and will it be relevant for you as a foreigner? Okay, let's look one by one. Minimum purchase price for foreigners. As I said, we have each state has its own standard operating systems. They have their own laws and bylaws. So in Selangor, their bylaws, or rather their circular, has informed everyone that for foreigners, you need to purchase at Zone 1 for Petaling, Gombak, Hulu Langat, Sepang, and Klang, and Zone 2, Kuala Selangor and Kuala Langat, a minimum purchase of 2 million ringgit in order for you to purchase a property in Malaysia for Selangor. In Malaysia, you have to be specific when you want to purchase the property because each state will have its own mechanisms. So in Selangor, minimum residential price is 2 million. Minimum commercial and industrial, the price is 3 million. Okay, this is for Zone 1. Zone 3 is minimum residential 1 million. This is Hulu Selangor and Sabak Bernam. And minimum commercial, it still remains at 3 million. Okay. And for Kuala Lumpur, like I mentioned, anywhere in Kuala Lumpur, and like how the first speaker has mentioned, he has mentioned, Kuala Lumpur isn't that big. Selangor is slightly bigger, right? So the Kuala Lumpur sense is just 1 million and above. And if you can find a rental and you can find the purchase price there in the heart of KL, the KL property in the heart of KL is quite expensive. It's 1 million and above. So there's a possibility, high possibility for foreigners to purchase property in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. All right. So in Johor, the minimum threshold for foreigners is also at 1 million, and so is Pulau Pinang properties. But for Penang properties, there's a slight difference because, let me just get you the amount. Give me 1 second, yeah? I am going to get you the amount of the just to share with you. All right, so if you see the schedule that we have shared here, the Penang, it's 1 million ringgit. But if you are of MM2H holders, it's 500,000, and PR holders are 250,000. Okay, and if you are having a landed property for Penang, it's 2 million on the island and 1 million in the main island. So there's difference here. This is strata, this is landed. Strata is when you buy high-rise properties or property that has gated and guarded. Usually those are strata. Landed are individual lots of lands, and they are usually marked as one plot of land. And it's not necessarily a plot of land that has set to it. So strata is basically a sec. So after this, let me just bring you back to the first slide, the original slide, yeah? So as you can see, that's the minimum purchase price for foreigners. In PTG is Pejabat Tanah Galian Land Office of Selangor. They came out with a circular this year, and this circular mentioned that from the 1st of January 2020 up to 31st December 2020, there is a change in the threshold and the kind of properties that Selangor, that a foreigner can purchase from Selangor Land Office, from Selangor basically. So the minimum purchase is no longer 2 million, it became 1,500,000 for all properties, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. All of them is 1,500,000, a minimum threshold. However, it still remains, I haven't touched this, but let me just share with you. Selangor, you can only purchase strata title properties for residential. That is the properties that are allowed by the government in the state of Selangor for foreigners to purchase. However, with this circular, you're allowed to buy strata properties, landed strata properties, and also landed properties which is limited to bungalows and semi-detached house. But those houses are, well, we would say those overhang projects by developers. That was the circular's main aim, to clear off hangover projects. Basically, too many of those projects that are not bought over by anyone since 2018. Okay, so that is for the purchase price. We will go towards the properties that are off limits for foreigners, and I hope you all are following me so far. Okay, off-limit properties. Off-limit properties for foreigners are valued for those less than $1 million. But of course, there are some exceptions. There are some projects down south in Johor, for example, it's 500,000 and above for threshold of properties to be acquired by foreigners. It may sound slightly confusing, I understand, but that's why all these things you need to ask. First, you need to know what kind of business you want to bring into Malaysia to acquire the property here, like how the first speakers mentioned. Then you need to know which state are you wanting to invest in. When you do that, then you would need to get at least the right knowledge from the right law firms to guide you. Some law firms, local law firms, meaning that each state has their own legal lawyers there to assist you, to let you know what is the exact circulars for that land office. For us in MahWengKwai, we do check on every circular of each land state. So Selangor, Melaka, Penang, KL. So now we're going off to the off-limit properties, 1 million above, 1 million and below, you can't purchase. Low or low medium cost houses. So in a transaction of sale and purchase, the principal sale and purchase agreements, if you're buying sub-sale, there will be a mention there, low cost housing or low medium cost. And these low cost housings and low medium cost is off limit to foreigners as well. On top of it, it's actually less than 1 million because it's low cost. And properties with a description of Malay reserve land, in the title itself, it says Malay reserve land, so that is not allowed to be acquired by foreigners. And any property that is allocated as Bumiputra lots, Bumiputra interests in development projects. So if you were to purchase a sub-sale, meaning sub-sale is a purchase of second-hand, meaning that you buy it over another person, a local maybe. If you were to buy from another local, please check whether the property, one, is there a strata title already, and does the strata title or the individual title mention whether this is a Malay reserve land or there is any Bumiputra lots if it's not within the strata or the individual title. So the development itself, is it a Bumi lot? You have to find out by checking, doing your due diligence before you commit to that letter offer to purchase the property. Okay, types of property allowed in Selangor, like I mentioned just now, residential units under strata titles only. Landed strata titles is allowed as well, but not landed property. Landed property, individual titles, bungalows, semi-detached, you're not allowed to purchase those properties that are marked residential units. For commercial units and industrial units or land, you're allowed to purchase. For Kuala Lumpur, you can purchase residential units, both landed and strata, meaning you can buy a house or you can buy an apartment or a condo or a sofa or a soho, it doesn't matter. You are able to purchase in Kuala Lumpur. Commercial units and industrial units or land and agriculture, yes, you are also allowed to purchase. But remember the threshold, it must be 1 million and above. If you were to appoint an individual to be a trustee for you, it's not possible either, because this is not allowed in the National Land Code. So you have to make sure that the purchase price of the threshold and the type of the property is within what you can acquire. Next is Johor. Purchases direct from the developer includes residential units you can purchase, commercial units, yes, industrial units into a certain criteria. Same as residential units as well, as long as it's not Bumiputra lots and certain other criteria, you are allowed to purchase the property. If it's sub-sale, means second-hand purchase. Residential units, yes. Commercial units as well. Industrial units and agricultural units, except by way of lease. All right. Real property gain tax. We have RPGT, which is the short for real property gain tax. It is an imposition of the tax chargeable gains on disposal of real property on the property owners and business owners. So if you already own a property and you're selling off, you are charged with real property gain tax. Actually, before 2019, foreigners only have to pay 5%. 5%, and 2013, 0. There's no percentage after 5 years. But after that, it all goes to 5%. And as you can see, the 5th year here, it goes quite high now. This is percentage from gains. Means if you sell a property and you receive a certain gains, you have to pay this amount. Foreigner consent, last 2 years, foreigner consent requirement and mechanism. So the requirement here is what law that it follows. So the requirement comes from the National Land Code, which is 433B, and also state authority. So what is state authority? What is here? What is the state authority? Whenever there's a title, you see the title, individual title, or strata title, there will be a mentioning there of restriction in interest. That means state authority. You have to apply for state authority consent. So the 433B foreigner consent is a must, but state authority consent, it depends on the title. Okay, so what are the mechanisms? You have to have the form 433B, And also if the payment will be 150 ringgit, not thousands of dollars or ring, it's just 150 ringgit. If it's without restriction, means just the 423B, you have to apply for this one only. But if you have to apply for both, then it's 200 ringgit the payment. Timeline, it really depends on the state government. So this is the foreign aid consent requirement and mechanism, the reference to it. Last but not least, the economic planning unit, the relevance. So why do you really need an EPU? EPU, that we call it EPU approval? Actually, no, unless it comes with these two situations. One is that it must be a direct acquisition. You're purchasing the property, which is valued 20 million and above, which results in dilution of ownership, property held by a Bumiputra interest or a government agency. So if is this the case, if you're buying a property more than 20 million, you have to do an EPU approval. You have to apply for another approval. But another way is actually you're acquiring shares of the property. This is for companies that has only property as its main. So acquisition of property by Bumiputra interest, acquisition of the shares of that company, that changes the control of the company and making you have more power towards the company. So if it's more than 50% and the property value is more than 20 million, yes, you need to apply for EPU. And I hope that clears up everything. So if there's any questions, please do check in with us. You can check in with me at sarah.kambali@mahwengkwai.com. We will definitely share you the slides later on. Thank you very much. And if there's anything else you want to ask, there is always an online talk for MWTA. We do it every month, and sometimes real estate has its topics too. And we also provide a 30-minute video consultation if you need anything. You just go to our website, you will see it there. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Now we will have our third speaker, Mr. Chai Chuan Long, to give us some introduction to the strata title system in Malaysia. Chuan Long, could you share your screen, please?
Can you see my slide?
Yes, yeah, it's working. Thank you.
Sorry, give me a second. Good afternoon all, I'm Chuan Long, and thank you JC Corporate for organizing today's webinar and having me here today to share with you some of the general information about the strata title in Peninsular Malaysia. And these are the subtopics that I'll be covered for today. First is what is a strata title and who will apply for the strata title, when the strata title will be issued, how to register the strata title in favor of a purchaser or passer or the property owners, and what is the perfection of transfer, steps to be taken to perfect the transfer, what are the implications if a passer property owner delay to perfect the transfer, and also the rights of the registered proprietor after the strata title has been registered in their favor. The question that you or a purchaser who buys or purchases a property in Malaysia may ask, how to show the legal ownership of the property that I have purchased? Or would I get a title deed to show my legal ownership to the property that I have purchased? Or why do I not get a title deed after I have signed the sales and purchase agreement, or after I have fully paid the purchase price in accordance to the sales and purchase agreement? In Malaysia, Peninsula of Malaysia, the land law actually is governed by the Natural Land Code, and also the system that we use is the torrent systems. Torrent system basically is a title deed system that maintained by the land office to prove the legal ownership to the property at the land office. In other words, the property ownership in Malaysia will show the property owner name to be registered and endorsed on the title deed that maintained in the land authority. So whether a purchaser is buying the property directly from the developer where the property is still under construction, or from the existing owner of a completed property in the secondary market or the subsale market, the purchaser will be getting a title deed to show the legal ownership. Generally, there are two types of the title deed to show your legal ownership. One is the individual title, which is applicable to the landed property, or strata title, which is applicable to the stratified development, such as high-rise building or stratified property developments. What is strata title? Strata title basically is a title deed in a documentation form that proves your legal ownership to the parcel or the property that you purchase, whether in subdivided building or at the alienated land in respect of the property development. We call it strata scheme. Strata scheme is a property development which will subdivide the land into parcels, accessory parcels, and common property where the management system will be set up or has been already set up. For example, service apartments, flats, apartments, condominiums, townhouse, and also the landed property in the gated communities system. So whether you are buy a property or a parcel fall under the above mentioned category, you will be obtained a strata title. So in strata title, we will know that who is the proprietor or the owner, what is the parcel or your property particulars, the area of the parcel, accessory parcel particulars, or the share units. Share unit basically is the owner apportionment to the total aggregate unit of the development, where this share unit can determine the property owner voting rights and the amount of the maintenance charges that you will be going to pay to the management office or the developer. Next, we are going to see what is the accessory parcel. Accessory parcel actually is an area that shown in your strata title, which is used or intended to be used exclusively by the property owner, and also to be used in conjunction with the properties. So when you look at your sales and purchase agreement that you sign between you and the developer, so the area which is shaded or delineated in blue color in the sales and purchase agreement that prescribed under the Schedule H of the agreement, then it is the accessory parcel. So you can see the accessory parcel can be situated on the same lot or situated within the subdivider of the building. For example, your car park, your garage, your air conditioner latch is situated inside your property or inside your parcel. So whether it's physically separated from the building or it will be separated with your property content in the developments. So however, you also need to take note that there is no strata title will be issued and there is no share unit will be assigned to the accessory parcels. So your accessory parcel cannot be built independently. For example, if you have purchased a property that comes with a car park, and the car park is deemed as the accessory parcel in the sales and purchase agreement, you are unable to dispose your car park because it is deemed as the accessory parcel, and you cannot deal with your car park independently. Next, we are going to see who will apply for the strata title. So if you direct purchase from a developer a property which is still under the construction, it's the obligation of the developer will apply for the strata title. So the developer being the registered proprietor that endorsed on the master title itself, so they are under the contractual obligation and also the statutory obligation to apply for the subdivision of the building or the land in order for them to obtain and acquire the strata title from the land authority. So you'll be also to see that the responsibility of the application to obtain the strata title is regulated under the Strata Title Act 1985 and also stipulated under the Sales and Purchase Agreement that prescribed in the Schedule H of the Housing Development Control and Licensing Regulation 1989. So pursuant to the Schedule H agreements, before the developer is delivering the vacant portion of the property to the developer, so the developer or the registered proprietor, well, if the developer is not the landowner, they shall at their own cost and expense without imposing or charging any additional cost to the purchaser and apply to the land office to obtain the strata title to the parcel or to the property that you have purchased. Now we are going to see what is perfection of transfer. So upon the strata title has been issued, after you have fully settled the purchase price that's stipulated under the sales and purchase agreement, and you as the purchaser has fully complied the term and condition under the sales and purchase agreement, so the developer shall, before the delivery of vacant possession of the parcel, the developer shall execute and deliver to you the instrument of transfer in order for them to register the property or the strata title into your name at the relevant land office. But however, there are circumstances where the developer is unable to give you the vacant possession when they are ready to deliver the vacant possession of the property to you. So in such circumstances, the developer is allowed to do so, provided that there are two conditions the developer shall comply. First is, the strata title is not issued must be not for any reason that attributable to the developer, and also before the delivery of the vacant possessions, the developer shall obtain the written certificate that issued by the Control of Housing in order for you to obtain the strata title from the developer. Next, we are going to see what is perfection of transfer. Perfection of transfer is a process of changing the name of the developer or the registered proprietor on the strata title in favor of the purchaser who buy the property or buy the parcel. So now we are looking at the steps to be taken in order to perfect the transfer. First, the developer will issue the written notification to the purchaser, notifying them that the title has been issued by the land office. So after this, as a purchaser, you may engage any legal firm after you have received the written notification from the developer to prepare the document to perfect the transfer. And also you need to sign the instrument of transfer in the prescribed form known as Form 14A. You need to pay all the relevant costs and expenses that to register the property in your favor, such as the legal fee, the ad valorem stamp duty. They will be chargeable or imposed by the Malaysia Inland Revenue Board, the relevant registration fee to be payable to the land authority, disbursement, and relevant risk reimbursement as well. Please note that if the instrument of transfer, the Form 48, to be executed in Hong Kong, it shall be attested by a diplomatic officer of Malaysia or a consular officer of Malaysia. And this is the requirement that's stipulated under the National Land Code of Malaysia. Next, after the instrument of transfer has been signed by both parties, you and the developer, the document will be submitted to the stamp duty office for adjudication or assessment to determine the ad valorem stamp duty that payable by the purchaser. So after this stamp duty has been paid to the stamp duty office, the legal firm that appointed or engaged by you will be submitted to the land office to perfect the registration of the transfer, to get the strata title to be registered or endorse your name on that documents. Please also bear in mind that if you as the purchaser or purchaser, they did obtain a financial facility to finance the purchase of the property, he is required also to conduct another process we call it perfection of charge. So perfection of charge is the process of charging the property or mortgaging the property in favor of the bank that granted the financial facility to you in order to secure their interest. So if there is a loan, both the process of perfection of transfer and perfection of charge to be conducted at the same time. There is also another important point that I would like to highlight. I think that Sarah did mention just now regarding the state authority consent or the foreigner consents. So prior to presentation of the registration of the instrument of transfer at the relevant land office, you as the foreign purchaser or a foreign company purchaser must ensure that the foreigner consent has been obtained or will be obtained before the presentation of the registration at the land authority. Because without the foreigner consent or the state authority consent, after you have submitted your documents to the land office for registration, the land office will reject without these documents. and the document, the transfer that you submitted will be deemed null and void, and you will require no interest to the property. So please bear in mind that the state authority consent or the foreigner consent is very important to perfect your interest on the property itself. Before I continue to my next subtopic, let me just show you the ad valorem stamp duty that currently charged by the Stamp Duty Office. For the purchase price, the first 100,000 ringgit Malaysia, it is 1%. The next 400,000 is 2%. The next 500,000 is 3%. And any amount of the purchase consideration exceeds 1 million, the Stamp Duty Office will charge you 4%. So let's say your purchase price is 1,500,000 ringgit Malaysia. The stamp duty chargeable by the Stamp Duty Office will be 44,000 ringgit Malaysia. But normally, if you direct purchase a property from the developer, the Stamp Duty Office, they will take into account the purchase price that's stipulated under the sales and purchase agreement to determine the stamp duty. But if you purchase a property from in the subsale or the secondary market, the Stamp Duty Office, they would have the absolute discretion to determine the stamp duty, whether based on the purchase price in the sales and purchase agreement, or they will look at the market value of the property as well. The next subtopic we cover is what are the implications of a parcel or property owner if they delay or they have defaulted to perfect the transfer. So I think in my experience, there are many purchasers may ask, can I not do the transfer? Okay, so now let's see what are some of the implications if you have failed to perfect the transfer. First, delay in disposal. Property owner, they may unable to dispose their property if the property is still registered under the name of the developer or the seller, because the developer or the seller are still deemed or is still the registered proprietor that endorsed on the title deed or the strata deed itself. So in such circumstances, the property owner is still required to conduct or to do the profession of transfer to endorse their name on the strata deed itself, and this will definitely cause a delay in completing your transaction or any subsequent disposal transactions. So if the property is a freehold property and the owner may obtain the developer written consent to provide a direct transfer. Direct transfer is a process where the developer will transfer the property directly in favor of the new buyer. But some of the developer, they may impose certain administrative charges that when you request the written consent from a developer to direct the transfer in favor of your buyers. But if the property is held under the leasehold property or leasehold land, the developer normally will not consent to a direct transfer because the state authority consent will be required in order to register the property in favor of the purchaser or the new purchaser. So in this situation, the property owner may need to proceed with another process that we call double transfer. First, the strata deed will be registered in favor of you or the property owner first, only thereafter from the property owner or you to the new buyer. So if you can see from this process, this will definitely take a longer time to complete the transaction, or will also cause any delay for you to receive the purchase price in your subsale transactions. So on top of that, if the owner passed away without perfect the transfer, so the beneficiary will not be able to dispose the property as well, even though they have already obtained the grant of probate that granted by a court, because the property need to be transferred from a developer to the executor, and then for the executor to the beneficiary before the beneficiary can dispose or sell the property. Next, developer wound up or liquidated. Should the developer go into liquidations, the property owner have to go through the trouble of locating the liquidator or receiver that appointed by the court. So then the purchaser or the property owner, they may incur any additional cost or expense to engage or to pay to the liquidator in order for them to apply for the subdivision of the strata title and to perfect the strata title in favor of the purchaser or yourself. Next is the management corporations. Okay, the right to be involved in your management corporation that formed by all the property owner of the development that will grant you the right to attend or vote at the annual general meeting of the management corporations. So if you have delayed or you have failed to perfect the transfer into your names, your right to be involved in the management or to attend or vote at the annual general meeting of the management corporation will be deprived. So if the property owner does not perfect or delay to transfer, he will lose his right that granted under the law in order for them to participate in the management of the developments. Indefeasibility of title. Okay. Upon of the strata has been registered at the land authority, there is a document, we call it registered document of title, will be kept or at the land office. So this registered document of title is the conclusive evidence to show that the strata has been duly registered or vested in favor of a property owner as the registered proprietor. Proprietor means a registered owner of a unit in the strata title or in the strata scheme. The registration at land authority confer indefeasibility interest. So it will act to confer statutory protection on the property to the registered proprietor. They will also give effect to the vesting of title in the newly registered proprietor and also divesting of that title from the previous or the ex-registered proprietor, for example, developer or the proprietor. And it also will provide certain statutory protection of the registered proprietor. This we will be see in my last subtopic later. So before I end my sections, let's see some of the rights of the registered proprietor if the strata has been registered in their favor. First, the registered proprietor would have the following powers that conferred by the National Land Code. First, the registered proprietor would have the right to subdivide or partition of land or with other lands that situated at the same lot. They also would have a right to subdivide any building on the same lot, or also has a right to transfer, lease, charge, mortgage, or easement. And also the right of dispose of the land or any undivided interest in the land by way of the will. Next, each of the registered proprietor would also have the interest in using the common property, and they would also become the owner of the common property. Also, the registered proprietor is also entitled to get certain rights on support and easement of the services in respect of his property. For example, the provision of the water, gas, sewerage, electricity, garbage collection, and other services. Furthermore, they are also entitled to their property to be sheltered by certain part of the subdivided building that are capable of providing the shelter to their property as well. Right to notice of general meeting and vote. Okay, a registered proprietor is also entitled to be receiving a notice of general meeting and to vote at such general meeting as well. So he may also requisition in writing for an extraordinary general meeting to be convened in order for the management corporation to determine what kind of the next resolution or the motion to be passed in order to carry out the administering or managing the common area and the common facility of the development as well. So please note that if a purchaser who has paid the full purchase price but whose title to his property is still registered under the name of the vendor, seller, or the developer, they would deprive of their voting rights, and also the right to attend the general meeting, to give any motion, because the vendor or the seller or the developer will remain as the proprietor to the property that they have purchased. Other than that, okay, a registered proprietor also may apply in writing to the corporation or the management corporation for the supply of the information that will concern about the management corporation, office barriers, and the managing agent. And also they are also entitled the right to inspect the records or the documents that maintained by the management corporation, such as the account or the record of the account as well. Okay. I think here are my section today, and thank you again, all of you, for your participation, and stay safe. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chuan Long, for this very informative session. Now we will move to a panel discussion moderated by GC Corporate's Legal Director, Janice Chu.
Hi everyone, thank you for all my learned friends who share their views on Malaysia property. So the reason why we have this seminar today is because last year there have been many inquiries about the property. They're asking the property in Malaysia, they would like to buy property in Malaysia, or some of my clients already bought property in Malaysia. And they have these questions in mind every time they come and ask, they ask me these questions. And there are also some SPA that they would like to terminate, that they already signed, and they would like to terminate because they have these different concepts in respect of strata title, because they think that they're using the concept in Hong Kong and they apply this concept in Malaysia. They think that they don't have this concept of strata title, because to them is a title, is a land title. So that's why when they came across this strata title, when they buy certain property, they realize that the title, the strata title, is still registered under the developer name. So they will be very nervous and think that, is this a scam? So that's why we think, okay, this might be a very suitable seminar to share with the Hong Kong audience, at the same time also for Malaysian audience as well. So now we will start our panel discussions. I would like to, the first questions, I would like to address to Sarah and Chuan Long. In view of the COVID pandemic now, what is your advice to foreigner individuals or companies that are interested in purchasing properties in Malaysia? So this is the first questions. I believe right now, and Malaysia is under CMCO. So those property has been bought since last year or beginning of the year. What is the situations right now? If, let's say, the foreigner consent is required, is there the approval process still ongoing, or it's going to be delayed for a while, since right now we are talking about CMCO? Can I let Chuan Long to start the questions first?
Yeah. Okay. In the KL land office, they still approve the foreigner consent within about 1.5 months after we have submitted. They still approve the foreigner consent in the property that purchased in Kuala Lumpur.
How about Sarah? Any tips that you would like to share with those foreigners that would like to purchase property in Malaysia in these situations?
Well, during the CMCO, you need to check thoroughly with the lawyers that you appoint, whether or not that lawyer can assist you and update you proper, because it's worse that you do not know any of the results when you apply and you're waiting, and like a month still nothing, 2 months still nothing, as in no communications at all. For me, the tip is to actually get a lawyer that can, well, every law firms are busy, I understand, but get a lawyer that can be able to check your file when you ask for it, or at least contact you periodically, like every single few weeks or so, just to update you, have a quick chat about your property. Because one thing for sure, I understand, as a foreigner, you're buying a property, not RM1 or RM2 or Hong Kong dollars for that matter. It's a 1 million and above for KL, 1.5 or 2 million and above for Malaysia, for Selangor. So basically, you need to have updates. So my tip is to get a lawyer that is able to give you updates. And for this CMCO, I would like to inform that we are still currently, because it's unprecedented, right? I mean, everywhere in the world as well. So for us, because the government themselves have given certain quota for people to work in the land office. So every state have to work, this one off the cuff, every place about 30% only can work in the office. So the rest all have to go to work from home kind of thing. Unless you're KL, like Chuan Long said, KL, no problem, because they can work from home actually. They are very IT savvy. They have the connections and they are able to check online, because I'm not sure what kind of applications they use, but KL, they have already done that and have it on the IT world basically. And I mean, among them, they can check all the documents. But for Selangor, we're still not headed there yet. So there are some delays in Selangor properties. I think as long as the state has more IT savvy, then that state is much better off to purchase now for the next maybe 2021 as well. So KL, it's quite good. Penang is also all right. I mean, they have not so affected the CMCO kind of thing, not like KL and Selangor. So, but like I said, KL is fine, better than Selangor. So yeah.
Okay. So in short, it depends on the states as well, right?
Yeah. Chuan Long, you have anything to add?
Yes. I think that if for a foreign buyer to acquire a property in Kuala Lumpur, before the issue of the Strata title, okay, as a foreigner, you are required to apply for the foreigner consent now, also upon the issue of the Strata title. So now you acquire the property and you need to apply under the section 433B, the foreigner consent. Upon the Strata has been issued, you also need to apply again for the foreigner consent. So there are two foreign consent that you are required to apply in Wilayah Persekutuan Kuala Lumpur. But in Selangor, state of Selangor, if the property does not have a Strata title, you do not need to apply for the foreigner consent until the Strata title or the injury letter has been issued.
Okay, I understand. So I just want to open this to the participants as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box. If we manage to get the speaker to share with us, I will try to ask the speaker right now. So the second question is actually addressed to Sarah, because just now you mentioned about the minimum purchase price for the foreigners. But I'm just wondering, as a foreigner, is there any limits to the numbers of properties that the foreigner can own?
Thank you, Janice. For limits of numbers of properties to own, that generally there is no limitation in all states of Malaysia for ownership. But there are some states, for example, Malacca, for example, they are allowed to acquire 1 residential unit and 2 commercial units, and that's in Malacca. Other than that, it's just types and foreign, the purchase price threshold. That will be the limit for a foreigner. Other than that, nothing else.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So Chuan Long, because I actually understand like the perfections of transfer that you shared just now, and you're also talking about the implications for delaying to perfect the transfer. So there are many incidents in Hong Kong which I came across, which is the Malaysian developer has not completed the process of transferring the title to the buyer after the completion of the project. So some has been like maybe 10 years, there have been, the project has completed, but the strata title has not been perfect. So is it true that the buyer cannot sell the property without the title in Malaysia? Or if that is true, what should the buyer do if, let's say, they encounter the situations?
If the property strata has yet been issued by the land office, the buyer is still entitled to sell the property by way of assignments.
Okay.
Yes, they are still entitled to sell. So with regard to the issue of the strata title, since year 2015, okay, the Schedule H prescribed form of the sales and purchase agreement has been amended. So like I mentioned just now, before delivery of vacant possessions, the developer is under the contractual obligation and also statutory obligation under the Strata Title Act. They are required to apply to the land office to obtain the strata title before delivery of vacant possession. So when the property is ready to deliver vacant possession, the strata title must be obtained by the developer and transferred to the purchasers. So if the developer or the registered proprietor, they fail to do so, is an offense. So upon conviction, the developer or the proprietor, they are liable to a fine or imprisonment. These are governed and regulated under the Strata Title Act.
So can I say in short, if let's say our Hong Kong buyer, they acquire a property in Hong Kong, in Malaysia, and they suddenly found out that actually the strata title has not been issued by the land office. So it's not like something is, cannot be cured, right? I would say it's
Yes,
not like
yes.
something very, very serious that, people would think that it's a scam because they acquire a property without a title. But at the end of the day, it still can be cured. But the only thing is they will spend more time in order to perfect the transfer. Am I right?
Yep, they're still entitled to sell. No worry about that.
Okay, so we have two questions in the Q&A. So the first questions is about, depends on who is comfortable to answer. So the first questions is about what is the charge a liquidator can charge in the event a developer is wound out, and who dictates the charge value? So as far as the participant understand, there is a liquidator asking for a 2% SPA price. So he is wondering whether this is legit. So yeah, in this case, if the developer delay handing out the strata for 4 to 5 years and then got wound out, no fault of the buyer who now have to bear the extra cost to get the strata title. So maybe Chuan Long?
If a developer is under liquidations, there is no statutory body that will be, there's no statutory body is under any obligation to apply or obtain the strata title. So the registered proprietor or the property owner, they are required to apply to the court in order for the court to engage a body, like for example, the liquidator, to take over the obligation to apply for their subdivision of the land or the property in order for them to obtain the strata title. Regarding the charges, this will be depends on the liquidator. Whether or not there is any percentage or limits, this will be determined by the liquidator. Regarding the 2%, perhaps this may be also imposed by the liquidator or the developer when they are, when a foreign buyer or even a local buyer, they want to dispose a commercial property without the strata title. Because the commercial property is not governed under the Housing Act and regulations, so normally the developer or the liquidator, they will impose certain percentage of the administrative fee.
Okay.
I don't know whether to answer the questions.
So if let's say this participant would like to know more about this question, you can actually send an email to Mr. Chai, and then perhaps, he can answer you in detail. So the second questions, maybe Sarah can help. Is there any retention sum to pay to the tax authorities if you are selling the property as a foreigner in Malaysia? So if there is a retention sum, how much it is? Sarah, pass it to you.
Hi, Janice. Thank you very much. Thank you for the person who's asking this question. Is a very, very important question, so that as a foreigner who owns a property, you would know how much you are going to lose. So basically, when you own a property in Malaysia and you decide to sell them, in Malaysia, we have real property gain tax, as I mentioned, to be charged on foreigners. Unfortunately, there's no, at the present moment, there's no leeway or there's no exemption. It's all the exemptions are for PRs or Malaysians themselves. So companies, foreigners, whenever you sell a property in Malaysia, you will be taxed. So what are the rates if you need to be taxed for real property gain tax? The rates is, as I've mentioned just now in the slide, and the retention sum. What is the retention sum? Okay, first and foremost, for those who are not sure what a retention sum is as its name, is to retain a sum of money from your purchase price, and this sum will be paid directly to the Real Property Gain Tax Department in the Inland Revenue Board, the IRB. So how much would it be for a foreigner? Because it is a different percentage than a local Malaysian. So a foreigner owner who is selling their property, the retention sum is 7% from the purchase price. 7%. So in other words, if you're, and this is in 2019 starting, before that it was the same as the rest, which is 3%, but now at 19 onwards it's 7%, and you would need to retain that. But the retention will be made by the purchaser lawyer. Means from the start of you signing the SMP, you sign a letter of offer, which usually the purchaser, the buyer, will pay 3% of earnest deposit, and that will be given to the agent. And sometimes the agent keeps it, sometimes it's given to you, but it's considered as part of your purchase price. Then the balance of it, the norm is that the first part of this transaction before the sale, during the sale and purchase agreement, means you sign the SMP, you have to pay at least 10%. Yeah, so 3% done. So a balance is 7%. So for a foreign entity, which is a company or foreigner as an individual, your 7% goes to the retention sum. That's why usually when I speak to foreigners, and if it's only agreeable between two parties, if the foreigner still wants slightly a little bit more for the deposit sum, then it's between the two parties, because 7% already goes to RPGT, Real Property Gain Tax. So he either gets it from the earnest deposit if the money is not deducted for agency fees, or he gets it from extra. So instead of just a 10%, the normal, maybe 11 or 12% instead for a deposit, and the balance is a balance purchase price is 88% instead of the normal 90% for the purchaser. But then it will be burdensome on the purchaser. But if both parties is okay with it, then it's fine.
So thank you, Sarah. So I have two more questions in relations to management committee, because I don't want to disappoint the participants. So I would like to ask this quickly. So are the owners able to demand that the management committee provide detailed financial records of project carried out in the premises? So the audited and statutory accounts are far too summarized to detect double or triple charging. So anyone can answer this?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
The registered proprietor or the parcel owner, they are entitled to inspect after they pay certain administrative fee to the management corporations.
Okay.
This is governed under the Strata Management Act. They are entitled to do so.
Okay. Okay. So the last question would be, is it legal and valid to hold an online AGM voting to establish a management committee? So because especially right now in COVID situations, people tend to wondering whether it can be online, like by Zoom, instead of physical online AGMs. Chuan Long, can you answer this? Thank you.
Okay. Under the Strata Management Act, it will list out the manner or the mode to convene the annual general meeting of the management corporation or the joint management body. For example, a notice to be issued to the registered proprietor before the annual general meeting to be held, and also others requirement and condition to be fulfilled. So there is no laws, rule and regulation to govern the virtual meeting by way of the video conference of the annual general meeting. But the Ministry of Housing did give a Q&A to state that during the COVID-19 or the movement control order, during this period, all the annual general meeting will be postponed. They also advise that do not convene the annual general meeting during this period, except the management committee. They may engage any meeting by way of physical meeting. There is no problem, but subject to the certain standard, the SOP to be complied with.
Okay. Thank you, Chuan Loong and Sarah, for the panel discussions. Our time is up, so I will pass this to Hao Min to wrap this up. Thank you.
Thank you once again to all our distinguished guest speakers for their value insights and their tips on the real estate overview of Malaysia. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you for all the participants for taking your time out to join us today. We really hope that it has been a fruitful afternoon for all of you. And we hope that this webinar gave all of you a fuller picture of property investment in Malaysia. And you can learn more about us at our website and get connected by following us on our social media sites. So please do check us out. Do keep in mind that all of us are just a call away if you need any assistance to kickstart your property investment in Malaysia. And if you have any further queries for us or any of the speakers today, please feel free to reach out directly. If you like a copy of the PowerPoint slides, we can share them with you. Please leave your email addresses in the chat box or contact us. And if you miss anything, don't you worry, we'll be posting the on-demand recording on YouTube when it's available. So on the side note, let me briefly also introduce our next upcoming event, which is going to be held on the 8th of January next year. It's going to be on a Friday at 3 p.m. It is on a pretty popular topic, and it's called cyber fraud and asset recovery. So feel free to sign up. Kindly also complete the evaluation survey of this event right here. As we are constantly striving to provide excellent service, we would love to hear from you, and we truly appreciate your feedback. Great, thank you everyone. Please stay well, stay safe. I'll see you all in our next event. So goodbye and have a great afternoon.